Wakoli's remarks, which were deemed as prejudicial to the sitting on Thursday. Natembeya expressed his worry of being persecuted wrongly before the committee when the chair had already made a predetermination on the matter. Kisumu Senator Professor Tom Agenda had to proceed with the session acting as chair.
That's how serious the Senate committee is. It's not just a talk show. And when you come here, you can discuss very serious issues. So if the chair of a committee has made such remarks in public, what chance do I stand for fairness? Is it a fair hearing? If a magistrate or a judge were to make such remarks in public about an accused person going to appear before them, I think the logical thing to do, if the judge made those remarks in the heat of the moment, I think just reasonable for the judge to recuse himself. What did the judge say? Challenged me as a man, as a Bukusu man. He is not appearing before men, other men to be persecuted. If I chickened out on account I didn't have enough time, I'll be finished today.
I can assure you that I wasn't aware that there was any prior preempting of the situation. But having said that, you also indicated that the notice that you're given was very short. You have a right to the committee and request for more time. That's a privilege that you have, that's a right that you have.
On my side, to fairness, I'm supporting the governor to be given time. Because even if we are going to give him 1 month, 1 month will be finished.
If the governor, what he's saying is true, I think personally I would say that we need to give more time to the governor. And if the pronouncement is there, then I think you as a chair, maybe you will not be fair to this governor.
Council, I trust your wisdom to defend the innocent and the guilty. I want to take a neutral position and proceed as an active member of this committee. Thank you.
Right, moving on, Raila Odinga's ally and a big critique of the broad-based government, Siasa Governor James Orengo led a delegation of leaders from the county to meet President William Ruto at State House Nairobi. The meetup was an opportunity for the largely ODM leaders to praise the broad-based government, assuring the president of the support in 2027. Siasa Governor Orengo has conspicuously missed from a number of meetings between ODM and UDA and has vocally expressed his dissent concerning the formation.
Your Excellency, our county of Siaya has come here as in a united front. I know you thought that we were divided. I know you thought that we might not be able to come as a team.
Please come to our aid in transforming Siaya, because where agriculture is having an impact in society, what national government invests, infrastructure, and even direct investment into enterprise, can change the life positively of communities.
We also want to assure you that we don't double speak as people of Siaya and people of my region. When we say one thing, that is what we mean, and we don't mean anything else. If we say we are in broad-based government, we are in broad-based government, we are working, and the principles have been established. So this is not time for us to be talking too much. Let us work. Let us work and work together, because development fears noise.
This broad-based government is God-sent. It is what we need to move Kenya forward, because some of the decisions we are making are so difficult. For example, we would not have done the leasing of our sugar mills, something we have been trying since I was Minister for Higher Education, since I was Minister for Agriculture in 2009. But it became possible because of broad-based.
So I want to plead with CR people, let us speak the language of the president. If we go out there and then we start to speak like what Rigathi Gachagua is saying, I think then we are undermining the president. I want to plead with all of us that from today onward, let us speak in support of the government.
Right, at the same time, Deputy President Kithure Kindiki has declared that he is not a pushover and will not be intimidated by former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. While speaking in Kitui County, he warned Gachagua against verbal insults and threats for leaders visiting the Mount Kenya region. Kindiki also called on leaders to be respectful to each other, saying the opposition led by Rigathi Gachagua is not a viable option for Kenyans come 2027.
Na mimi nataka niwaambie, msidanganywe watu wetu wa Ukambani kuingia katika siasa ya ujinga na ya bure na ya kuongea tu kusukumana na maneno ya kelele na vita. Kwa sababu siasa ni mashindano ya uongozi, sio vita. Kwa sababu siasa kila kiongozi anakuja anauza sera. Wananchi wale wengi wakimkubalia kama vile mlikubalia Nimrod, anaendelea. Ule hajapata leo anangojea labda siku ingine Mungu atamjalia. Simple and clear, isn't it? Kwani ni vita jameni? Sio vita. Kwa hivyo mimi naomba tuheshimiane. Kuna viongozi wanatembea kila mahali wakitukana viongozi, wakitukana wananchi, wakipiganisha nchi, wakiongea mambo ya hatari na kuleta mambo ya wasiwasi baina ya wananchi. I want to assure you, as the Deputy President of Kenya, God loves Kenya so much, and the government will do whatever it is to make sure our country is stable and safe today, tomorrow, and forever. Musiwe na wasiwasi. Ate kunaweza kuwa sijui na machafuko. We cannot allow. Mungu hawezi kubali kwa sababu anapenda Kenya. Na serikali pia haiwezi kubali. Ile uhuru iko ni uhuru ya watu kutafuta viti, hiyo ni sawa sawa. Moja akuje ajieleze. Kesho.
Right, moving on, Nandi Hills Member of Parliament Bernard Kitur has alleged that his life is in danger following his continued push to bring to book an organ transplant syndicate linked to a private hospital in Eldoret. The hospital is suspected of carrying out illegal kidney transplant. Speaking when he appeared before the National Assembly Health Committee on Thursday, June 5th, that is yesterday, to help in the inquiry, the MP claimed that the continued threats to his life happened as recently as Wednesday evening. He revealed that this intimidation was coming from the hospital's officials, detectives from the Director of Criminal Investigation, and even local leaders.
What is the current policy on a judicial section in terms of payment? Does communities, local communities, charge any money? And if it is yes, how much?
The minute we start operating in silos in this country, that is exactly how we get it wrong. We must be holistic in the way we approach our matters. Thank you, Chair.
And as we speak right now, there is a department of DCI that is a department that is dealing with land fraud. But having had several meetings with the DCI, we realize that it is important to bring other stakeholders, not as a multi-agency, on a standalone multi-agency, but in terms of workings, that now as DCI investigate, then EACC should also have an eye, or you know, have an eye on investigation going on. Then also NIS should be able to feed in with the intelligence and because we realized land fraud is not just like robbing, you know, someone standing there and robbing. Land fraud is an organized crime.
Right, 4 days after his Madaraka Day speech, President William Ruto has officially returned the Kazi Mtaani program, which he had halted after stepping in office. Speaking during the 62nd Madaraka Day celebrations held in Homa Bay County, President William Ruto said the government made the decision to reintroduce the program to address the growing demand of job opportunities among the youth. President Ruto had previously abolished Kazi Mtaani in 2022, explaining that the youth would instead be absorbed into the affordable housing plan under the Jua Kali sector.
The majority of the activities are going to coalesce around roads and roads-related activities. So we expect that we are going to have activities such as expansion of drainages along the roads. We are going to have even roads which are being done either from cobblestone, from Cabro. There will be just, footpaths that will be constructed, access roads to various public facilities.
Because you work for 10 days, you take a break for 10 days, it's an opportunity to acquire some skill, which then would allow you to do the next available job opportunity that we continue to push as an administration.
So we'll also be working closely with those committees to be able to supply us with some of the basic materials like gravel, like hardcore, to ensure that the roads that we improve are also improving the connectivity in areas that have challenges.
Right, moving on, the Inspector General of Police, Douglas Kanja, on Thursday met senior commanders from across the country to discuss emerging security challenges and issues affecting the welfare of police officers. The IG has ordered all county commanders to form corruption prevention committees, investigate all corruption cases and file reports with his office. Failure to do so will see the county commanders bear personal responsibility and be held accountable for any corruption cases within their jurisdiction.
The responsibilities of those corruption prevention committee shall be to develop, implement, review and monitor corruption prevention framework within that area. You will need to come out with a SWOT analysis so that you are able to identify and flag out key areas which needs your input in ensuring that you mitigate against the elements of corruption that will become prone.
We wanted to also have this sitting here with the senior leadership so that we can be able to discuss on a very serious note matters, corruption within the National Police Service and how we can be able to deal with it. I know corruption is not about the police alone, it's a societal problem actually. However, as an organization, we must address it from where we sit.
President William Ruto has reaffirmed that he will not back down in his quest to end sugarcane cartels in Western Kenya as government beefs up decision to lease the sugar factories to private investors. The head of state met members of parliament from Vihiga, Kakamega, Busia, Bungoma and Trans Nzoia at State House. The president said the government is sustaining reforms in the sector to inject the much needed professionalism, sound management and efficiency.
Yeah. Yes, 112.
We must focus on agricultural activities that put money in people's pockets. You know, the reason I am so passionate about this sugarcane and the reason I am ready kukosana na watu is because we must sort it out. It is what has impoverished Western Kenya. Because when people engage in an activity that makes them poorer, we are hurting them. You know? Mtu analete miwa yake. 6 months later, hajalipwa. 1 year later, amezama. Inakuwa ni kesi. Inakuwa ni siasa. Mpaka sasa inafika sijui wapi, itafutwe pesa ya serikali. I want to give you my assurance. We will make sure that cane farmers are paid a good price. They are paid weekly. The workers are paid. And I promise you by December this year, I will come to Nzoia, I will come to all the other mills, and we are going to pay bonus. We are going to pay bonus.
Most men tend to think roads as infrastructure, and it's important. But I think Western Kenya, not just the Luya Western Kenya and the Teso, including Rift Valley and Nyanza, I think beyond the kind of infrastructure we are doing, if we put some money in seedlings for agricultural crops that can bring our people up, that is what Central has been doing. I think we will grow our people from poverty. And once you do that, Your Excellency, I'm thinking Eldoret Airport, International Airport, and Kisumu need to be operationalized to do direct cargo from Western Kenya directly to Europe, Western Kenya directly to the rest of Africa in order for us. We can also grow French beans.
Now, tensions are high in Nyamira County Assembly following a High Court ruling that upheld the impeachment of Senator, or rather Speaker, Enoch Okero, and declared all actions declared by him thereafter unlawful. Delivering the ruling at Bomet High Court, Justice Julius Kipkosgei stated that Okero ceased to hold office following his impeachment in October 2024, and his continued occupancy of the Speaker's office has no legal foundation. In response, more than half of the members of the County Assembly have expressed dissatisfaction with the court's ruling.
The misreporting which you've seen in media, the judge did not declare anyone as the elected Speaker of the Nyamira County Assembly. If you read for a judgment, if you read the judgment yourself, actually you read the judgment yourself and the judge says that the judge did not declare, it says that it has no jurisdiction to declare who is the Speaker of the County Assembly of Nyamira. So I consider the proof that under the orders we have, that one Enoch Okero is still the Speaker of the County Assembly of Nyamira until he is properly removed from office and another individual elected as Speaker. And that one has not happened. It was not near anywhere in the judgment which was issued at the High Court in Bomet. And we've been dismayed by our that judgment, by the kind of judgment that gave. On the first issue, number one, we have other active cases which are ongoing in court. The judge did not consider the merit or the issue of those other cases. Number two, and most importantly, the judge dealt on the issue of impeachment, which was not part of any of the requests by the people who went to court.
And the 22 of us today, members of the County Assembly, who have been legally following the law, because we had a Speaker and we still have a Speaker, Enoch Okero, who is legally in office because the orders of E008, a petition that is still active in court, has not been vacated and has not been determined. That our courts can rule on small matters, leaving the mother matter without.
Now, the leadership of the Law Society of Kenya, that is the LSK, with the help of police officers, have arrested 5 people in Bungoma who have been posing as lawyers and defrauding citizens. According to the LSK unit manager, lawyer Steve Mbogwa, for 13 years, citizens have been unknowingly defrauded and lost millions of Kenya shillings. Now, Mbogwa says that surprisingly, these fake lawyers have ever been representing many cases in court and are urging citizens to verify the legitimacy of lawyers when seeking legal services. Mbogwa says if found guilty, they will be sentenced to between 1 and 3 years in prison, saying they will push to clean up the profession.
In our operation, we have managed to arrest 5 individuals who have been running 4 separate law firms or separate offices, which they purport to be law offices. It is unfortunate that these offices have been there for quite some time, since 2013, and we have realized that they have been conning members of public millions of shillings. Some of the offices we have recovered very serious documents, such as title documents. We have retrieved file cases, which matters are pending in court, with a clear indication that these masqueraders have also been appearing in court, especially the virtual court sessions, pretending to be lawyers and in capacity to provide legal services. It's very unfortunate that we continue to witness this, especially in our upcountry. What I would like to request our members of public who are around this area, whenever you seek legal services, wherever you are, kindly ensure that the person offering the services has introduced themselves, either by showing you their copy of license for the year, or you have verified their name by checking their name in the LSK search engine, in the Google search. You just need to Google search LSK search engine, feed the name of the person who is purporting to be an advocate, and shall provide you with a picture, the details of the validity of the license, and their full details and their office location.
Right, it is exactly 34 minutes past the top of the hour. We take a short breather here on EBN. The Drift will be back with much more. He quits World Bank job and former interior the next general elections. A powerful minister during President Kenyatta's tenure, his candidacy for the top seat is being fronted by the retired president's Jubilee party. Of course, that police story can get it on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. And continues to say Dr. Matiang'i's campaign secretariat yesterday confirmed that the former powerful CS had given 3 months notice to the Bretton Woods institution at the beginning of this month, with his contract terminating in August. He is, however, expected back in the country from the US at the end of this month to resume political mobilization ahead of an official campaign launch in August, setting the stage for his anticipated return to the Kenya's public arena after he thrust in the limelight by former President William Ruto, or rather, former President Uhuru Kenyatta's cabinet appointment. Of course, Fred Matiang'i will be vying for presidency come 2027 in the ticket, of course, in the Jubilee Party. Moving on, timeline after 2022 polls now. The Daily Nation says in January 31st of 2023, there was re-emergence to mourn cabinet colleague George Magoha. In February 8 of 2023, a siege on his current home by armed men believed to be police officers. And in February 9 of 2023, obtains court order barring his arrest following the raid disowned by the state. In March 7 of 2023, former CS is quizzed at the DC headquarters over the alleged raid at his home. In April 25th of 2023, ex-minister and the state reached an out-of-court settlement to end case on the raid, and in July 13th of 2024 signs a contract with Canadian lobby firm Dickens and Madson to prop up presidential candidature ahead of the 2027 general elections. And in April 29th of 2025 meets opposition leaders Rigathi Gachagua, Kalonzo Musyoka, Martha Karua and Eugene Wamalwa to plan coalition. In May 2nd of 2025 makes whirlwind tour to of his Gusii backyard, where allies root for his presidential candidacy. Of course, that is the former CS and 2027 presidential aspirant under the Jubilee ticket. Of course, that is former Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i. Moving on, the story making headlines in the Daily Nation. Ngugi cremated in US as per his wish to avoid burial. Now, do not expect a formal burial ceremony for the celebrated Audha Ngugi wa Thiong'o, as he had wished to have a private exit from the world. According to his family, he wanted instead to be remembered in spirit through the ideas he stood for and the lives he touched. The first event in Kenya in his honor will be on June 20th at the University of Nairobi's Taifa Hall. Of course, that police story, you can get it on page 3 of the Daily Nation dated today. Moving on, anti-finance bill, detained activist won't give up her campaign. Now, software developer Rose Njeri recounts her arrest from a city college for establishing a website for Kenyans to express their views on the proposed law. Of course, that police story can get it on page 10 of the Daily Nation. Let's take a look at that police story on page 10 of the Daily Nation. And on Friday, May 30th, the 35-year-old software developer was preparing to attend her graduation ceremony after completing a 2-month course in branding and IT at Nairobi's Baraza Media Lab. Unknown to her, officers had been tracking her movements and knew exactly where she lived, including her house number. As she mingled with friends and took photos after the graduation, a strange woman in the crowd called her over. At the first time, she did not understand why she had been taken, and she says she learned that they were DCI officers when one of them identified herself. The officers drove her to her residence, searched her house, and confiscated her phone, computer, and laptop. Then they drove her around for nearly 4 hours, repeatedly questioning her about the website. Eventually, they took her to the DCI headquarters on Kiambu Road and instructed her to write a statement about the website she had created. The site was a platform inviting Kenyans to express their views on the Finance Bill 2025. She said she developed the platform after seeing a request on X for help to create a tool to send feedback to the Ministry of Finance. Ms. Jerry expressed frustration over her 4-night detention at Mangani Police Station and how she was separated from her children without warning. She also suffers from low iron anemia and said police ignored her medical needs. Right, that's what's up. It matters politics in the country. Moving on, devolution. Court backs governors at 10 billion Kenya shillings roads funds. Now, High Court rules it was unconstitutional for the National Assembly to exclude counties from among beneficiaries of the Road Maintenance Levy Fund. MPs have vowed to derail a law on county cash in retaliation. Of course, that particular story, you can get it on page 7 of the Daily Nation. Moving on to the Standard newspaper dated today, the 6th of June 2025. Now, top story on the Standard says end of free education. Now, January 6th of 2003, the day chaos met hope. Across Kenya, public schools erupted as President Mwai Kibaki declared free primary education for all. Classrooms overflowed, teachers were overwhelmed, and budgets blown. But for millions, it was a dream realized. Decades later, that dream is fading. Education officials blame chronic underfunding and raising costs. The return to school fees is blooming, and with it, the risk of reversing one of the Kenya's boldest social gains. Of course, that is a story on page 4 of the Standard newspaper. Now, there is a quote there from the late former President Mwai Kibaki, and I quote, says, "My fellow countrymen, during our campaigns, we promised to bring into classrooms millions of young, vibrant children. I thank all parents to have seen it prudent to take their children to school under our free primary school education policy." Now, Julius Ogamba, Education CS, says, and I quote, "We are trying to think outside the box to see how we can fund education in this country in view of the constitutional provisions. It is going to be difficult to offer quality education if we don't get a solution to the underfunding of this sector." Of course, those are the words of the Education CS, that is Julius Ogamba. And there is also a story there that 60 billion Kenya shillings, the Meli-led committee demanded answers from Ogamba on the government plans to bridge about 60 billion Kenya shillings spending bills owed to schools for over a decade. Of course, that's a story. You can get it on page 1 of the Standard newspaper. Moving on, family broken over Ngugi US cremation. Now, Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o family learned of the right after the act, with some saying there was a need to involve everyone for closure in spite of that being their father's wish. Of course, that's a story. You can get it on page 10 of the Standard newspaper. And of course, Orengo in U-turn State House tour. Of course, we'll take a look at that particular story on the Daily Nation. Of course, it is on page 6 of the Standard newspaper dated today. Now, Busia's Mary and Joseph draw pilgrims from entire continent. Now, in Bungoma village, Matayo sub-county, Busia County, a 50-year-old woman has stirred another countrywide debate after proclaiming herself the reincarnation of Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ. Judith Nafula, a mother of 5, says, and she received a divine revelation in the form of the dazzling light of her heavenly voice declaring her modern-day Virgin Mary. Her husband, John Wekulo, she insists, is Joseph, and has chosen to walk with her in what they called as a spiritual restoration of the Holy Family. Now, following the calling, she claims the Holy Spirit directed her to vacate the couple's bedroom and move into the sitting room, which she now refers to as her sanctuary. Now, the pair were reportedly instructed to fast for 2 months and to abstain from Holy Communion for 5 years. According to her, she what started as a spiritual awakening has now turned into a full-blown pilgrimage site. Locals call it Bethlehem of Busia. Every day, pilgrims stream in from Kenya and neighboring countries, including Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and even the Democratic Republic of Congo. They come seeking healing miracles or simply to catch a glimpse of Mama Maria. Now, the homestead, once an ordinary village home, now pulses with the sounds of hymns, ululations, and prayers. Some visitors claim to have been healed. Others, moved by faith or curiosity, watch in awe as people collapse in trances and rise declaring miracles. Nafula's sister-in-law, Evelyn Ouma, said there was a couple that had been trying to conceive for years, but when they came here, prayed with Mama Mary, and months later, they had a baby. Of course, that particular story continues on and on. It is on page 3 of the Standard newspaper dated today. And someone may wonder how Virgin Mary may have 5 children. Right, moving on. Rose Njeri, my harrowing 4-day lock-up in police cells, now with a dismaying smile. It's hard to believe that Rose Njeri is the woman who was being given authorities sleepless nights. Now, software developer detectives pounced on Njeri on the grounds that she was the face behind digital revolt against the Finance Bill 2025. She was arrested on 30th May of 2025 by officers from the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, that is the DCI, who interrogated her before locking the mother of 2 at Pangani Police Station. After being released by the court on Tuesday, Njeri opened up about her ordeal behind bars, oozing confidence. Njeri says the incarceration, which thrust her into the limelight, opened her eyes to what prisoners go through. Of course, that story goes on and on page 2 of the Standard newspaper. Of course, also in the corridors of justice, governors beat MPs in battle for the 10 billion roads maintenance kitty. Of course, that you can get it on page 2 of the Standard newspaper. Let's take a look on what's making headlines on the Star newspaper dated today, the 6th day of June 2025. And the top story on the Star newspaper says, Ruto, Luya MPs in budget crisis talks. Of course, that is on page 4 and 5. And there is a picture there of President William Ruto with Siaya Governor James Orengo at State House, Nairobi, when he hosted leaders and businessmen from Siaya County on Thursday, which was yesterday. Also, there is a picture there of President William Ruto with MPs from Vihiga, Kakamega, Busia, Bungoma, and Trans Nzoia counties at State House. Now, building bridges, DP Kindiki host Farouk. Of course, DP Kindiki was speaking in Kitui County, and there is a picture there of Deputy President Kithure Kindiki aide the President's aide, Farouk Kibet, during an empowerment program for women and youth groups through circles in Kitui East constituency. Of course, that's a story on the Star newspaper. Let's take a look on the President William Ruto's talks with the MPs on page 4 and 5 of the Standard newspaper. And President William Ruto was on Thursday forced into crisis talks with MPs from Western region to avert mounting disquiet over the glaring exclusion of key regional projects from the budget. The impromptu meeting was held at State House after the lawmakers started focusing on their own about the budget snub. At the heart of the discontent is the exclusion of major infrastructure, health and industrialization projects. President Ruto promised the region but are not factored in the budget. Now, MPs are presently considering estimates for the financial year beginning July 1st, in which the government seeks to spend 4.23 trillion Kenya shillings. Aware of the potential fallout and the delicate balance within the administration, Ruto reportedly called the meeting to iron out concerns and refine his commitment to fulfilling regional development promises. Of course, that's a story. You can get it on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspaper. Now, matters politics inside the numbers and fresh push to remove Ruto in 2027. Of course, also that is on page 2 and 3 of the Star newspaper in matters politics. Now, blood tax wary Kenyans as planned to cut pay shelf. Of course, that can get it on page 8 of the Star newspaper. Of course, Murang'a Twitter to serve 30 years in jail for sexually abusing 3 boys. Of course, let's take a look at the story on page 3 of the Star newspaper now. Murang'a court has sentenced a 56-year-old teacher to a 30-year jail term for committing incident acts with 3 boys. Edward Kamau was accused of touching the private parts of boys aged 9, 12, and 15 years on October 18 and 19 last year at Gadama area in the county. Now, he will serve 10 years for each count, and the sentences will run consecutively. The minors told resident magistrate Amelia Owino that the teacher ordered them to visit his house after church, where he instructed them to sit on his lap, and they scrolled through his phone. The boy said the teacher took the opportunity and inserted his hand in their shorts and touched their private parts, claiming to check if the testes were out of the stomach. Now, he repeated the act multiple times. A mother of one of the boys got wind of the incident and interrogated him, and he confessed to her. The mother reported the incident to Nyakihai police post, and Kamau was arrested. In his defense, the suspect told the court the charges were fabricated by the mother of one of the boys because of a dispute he had with her. Kamau said the mother was angry that he had refused to lend firewood and that she then roped in the other boys to create the case against him. He pleaded the leniency, citing his status as a first-time offender and his wife's illness and unknown whereabouts, as she had not appeared in court. He requested the court to impose a non-custodial sentence to allow him continue with his life. The magistrate, however, found him guilty, saying that the prosecution had proven beyond reasonable doubt that he committed the offense. The court was satisfied with the evidence presented by the prosecution. Of course, the teacher will serve 10 years for each count. Of course, that sums up to 30 years in prison for sexually abusing 3 boys. Right? Quite unfortunate story right there. Right, it is 3 minutes to the top of the hour. At that note, we wrap up our briefs on matters newspaper. We'll be back in just a bit. We'll be having a conversation with a visual artist, also a portrait designer. We're going to take a look on what's on what it takes in drawing and whatnot. Do stay with us for that particular conversation in just a bit.